my name is Tatiana and my channel is Created by Lady T, and in this channel I talk about quilting, sewing, and crochet. I give quilt alongs, sew alongs, and crochet alongs, and I also give product reviews on related products to sewing, quilting, and crochet. If you're new to my channel, welcome. Today's episode of my channel is my final episode of my 12 blocks till Christmas. So I started this project a few months ago where I was doing 3 blocks a month for about 3 months, and I made 12 blocks, and each block presentation is in the description box below. And I also showed how I put batting and backing, and in this episode I'm also going to show how I've binded my quilt, and now it is finally done. So here is how I finished this quilt. So take a look. All right, so I did a very simple quilting on this. I used a serpentine stitch. I'm sorry, I'm not talking very well these days. I've been very busy. Now the last thing is for me to use my binding and bind this quilt. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure the quilt, all 4 sides of it, to see how many inches of binding I will need. And that way I will be able to get my binding ready for this. So I measured this. This is 80 times 2 for the long sides, and then that's 160, and then 60 times 2. It's 120. So it's 120 plus 160. And then I need to add about, I'm going to add like an extra 10 inches for each corner. So that's 40. So 280 plus 40. I need about 300. I need 320 inches of binding. So that's what I'm going to work at doing. That's probably about 3.5 yards of fabric. 320 would be about 3.5 yards of fabric. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do this on the grain. I'm not going to do it on the bias. I really should do it on the bias, but I'm going to do it on the grain because I've already started my red on the grain already. I've got this red fabric that I've already got a bit of it. I'm going to see how much I have, and I'm going to use this one. This is on the grain. It's not on the bias. I had it from the past. This is part of my scraps. So I don't want to start all over and make a new binding. So I'm going to see if I have 320 of this right now. So I do have just a little, I have a lot actually of more than 320, but I cut it at about 350. So I'll just have a little bit more extra. And I always like to put my binding on a pool noodle to keep it straight. I actually learned this from somebody on YouTube. I forgot who, but ever since I saw that, I thought this is kind of cool because I like to keep my binding straight, and it gets tangled a lot. So I get these pool noodles from Dollar Tree, and I cut them in half, and I wrap my binding strips on them, and I store them that way as well. I've been doing that for quite some time, and it's really worked out really well. So next thing, let's bind this up and finish this quilt. I'm going to be quilting starting with the back first, and then I'll turn it over to the side. Now, because I'm putting the back first, I am going to put my green thread for my top needle. And then I'm going to use my white thread for the bobbin so that it goes on this side. And then when I flip it and sew it the other way, I'm gonna put the white up here and the green here. So I'm gonna mix it up. So that's how I'm gonna work the thread. I've lined up the raw edges together. Now this is the back side of my quilt, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave about 8 inches here and start sewing all the way down until I get to the corner, and I'll show you how I handle the corner. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I've got like a 1/4 inch here. I'm going to sew all the way to there, and then I'm going to go to the right this way so that I have this little slanted edge so that I can turn my binding. So I'm just going to sew until I get, I have a feel for this. So it's about a 1/4 inch here. So before I get here, I'm going to just turn to the right. Okay, so what I do is I pivot and I just make sure that I have a little bit of a corner, and then I sew all the way out to the raw edge. Okay, so this is how it looks. I have it all the way to the raw edge because what I want to do is I want to fold my, to miter my corner, I want to fold my binding and then bring it like this and then start again. So I have to cut a little these raw edges. I'm going to do that and then I'll turn this around. So I flip this. Now I'm going to start sewing all the way down. So this isn't going to be from the middle because I'm going to sew all the way down to the end, and I'm going to do exactly the same thing on all the corners until I go all around. I finished this side of my binding. Now how I attach my binding here, I actually went over a little bit. I followed Jenny at Missouri Star Company, and I will put her link in my description box because it was her idea that I use. So I didn't want to take her idea and put it on my video. So I am going to put her binding technique that I use here on my description box, so you can watch that to finish your binding. Now I'm going to flip this over and I'm going to sew it the other side, and then I'm done. Okay, so that was the last part of finishing the quilt. I'm really happy with this. This is actually, to tell you guys the truth, the largest quilt I've ever made in my whole entire life. I don't have a long arm. I never thought about getting a long arm, so quilting this was a little difficult, but it did come out really nicely. So I do want to share what the quilt looks like with you all. And I am going to open this. So this is the back, like this. And I just used a quilt backing fabric that I got at the fabric store, and this is the quilt. So it's huge. You could barely see this. It is absolutely large and huge. It will cover a full-size bed or a queen-size bed, or you can put this in the living room. But because I use that wool, the white wool fabric binding, it's softer, and so it makes it cuddly, and it's not just one of those quilts that will be stiff. It will be cuddly and really something very special to use. So I decided that I was going to donate this to the Andromeda Electric Orchestra to help raise funds for their events as well as their performances. And I will be presenting this to Alfred. The Andromeda Electric Orchestra has also created the music for my YouTube channel, the starting of it. So I'm really happy to be giving it to a nice cause and that it will end up in somebody's home someday and they can appreciate it and use it every Christmas or just use it whenever. So thank you for those of you who've been following me. Thank you. I appreciate it. I love that you followed my channel. For those of you who've been giving me advice as I've been going along doing these blocks, I really appreciate that too. I love to get feedback and I love to get comments. So please give me comments. I will be having a few more Christmas projects coming up in the next couple of days. And I do have another quilt that I'm making, and I will be doing a Valentine's Day quilt that will be starting in January. So please subscribe to my channel, Created by Lady T. I'd love to have you guys join me along. And Merry Christmas and have a Happy New Year from Created by Lady T.